let's start when Puma was created. New Japan helped create the concept of Puma because I resembled the original Tiger Mask, the way that I moved and like my graceful like ability to do technical wrestling and also like Muay Thai, boxing, and just things like that. My ability to fly and just my built-in foundation from Lucha Libre. So they're like, wow, all those elements, you'd like Tiger Mask. And he's one of my favorite wrestlers ever too. I mean, it's like Eddie, Tiger Mask, Shawn. That's like my almost all my Mount Rushmore. And when they were coming up with that concept with me, their idea was sort of like to make Puma like Tiger Mask. My idea was to make Puma like the Great Muda, and I wanted to model it after what the Aswang is now. And this was so long ago, though. So this was like 2002. And, as a young kid, I didn't have any money. And technology at the time for, like, making gear and costumes wasn't so good unless you were, like, literally the Great Muda. So, like, it was hard to create what I am able to do now. And I also didn't have the opportunity to have significant places on the cards to really portray it as something special and like magical like that. So I waited. I mean, I waited 20 years. And so like then we fast forward to when I became Suicide, and they said they wanted to change the character and maybe take the mask off and change the name. And I pitched so for Puma, in my mind, I pictured like the were-dog from Filipino folklore. So like that version of an Aswang is I was like, oh, I'll make it like the were-dog. That's why the mask has like the little red underlines and it's like blacked out and it kind of looks evil, even though it's a babyface character. So then later as Suicide, they wanted to change it, and so my creative idea was, can I make it like a ghoul? Like if you take the mask off, maybe I paint parts of the mask on and it's like melting down my face, and I'll rip the suit so it's really just the pants and like it's like shredded up, and I'll have like blood and mud all over me like I crawled out of the grave. And so it's like you killed the character, but the character is still coming back to life. And so then I was thinking of like the ghoul version of like an Aswang, like the graveyard version. And then they turned it into some dark cult type thing, so it was different than that. So then later, when I was doing independence and stuff, a short time after that, a couple years later, I thought, okay, I'll just create the Aswang. I'll be TJ most of the time, and then sometimes I'll be like this right here. I'll be the Aswang. But then Fergal Devitt, Finn Balor, who's somebody I knew, was a good friend, and he created his demon character in Japan, and it was just so good. And I was like, it's so special that it's like, just out of respect for your peers in the industry, you don't touch it. So I was like, I can't touch that. I'm gonna just let it go. And it wasn't until 10 years later, and now that sort of has cooled off for him, and maybe like WWE doesn't utilize it in certain ways, and I don't think it has turned out exactly the way he wanted it to maybe anymore at this point. But it was the right opportunity. So then finally at Wrestle Kingdom, New Japan was like, do you have anything you want to do? And I said, yes, actually, I want to create this character. And I've been waiting my whole life to do it. And now I'll never not do it. It's it's part of me. But I don't know, there's just symbology behind it, and so many things that's like a parallel to like my life. People tell me all the time I look like a vampire because I don't look my age. I still look like I'm in my 20s, and they're like, it's like you never age. And I said, well, okay, that's like an Aswang. And then everybody says you're so good and adaptable and versatile. And I said, well, that's like an Aswang. They're shapeshifters, and their main trait is survivability and adaptability and things like that. And by nature, I don't know, I'm a dark kid. I always liked horror movies and grunge, punk rock, and I'm always dressed in black. And I'm not like what like say my WWE character before was like. I mean, I like video games, sure, but like even that, like video games, I like Resident Evil, I like Castlevania, stuff like that, and I'm not like a fancy guy, with gold chains and stuff like that. Like I'm a grungy graveyard kid, basically, So it just seemed, and I grew up in the sticks in California. I grew up in the orange grove, so it's sort of like that's the setting that the legend comes from, is like a country hillside monster in the Philippines that was like in the fields, not necessarily in the city. And it was like, it was a legend to scare country folk. And so like, that's the setting I grew up in. So it just felt right to me my whole life. So I wanted to be that.